Thank you for watching. This is Mysterialis. I'm John Razimus. In this episode, I'm going to show you what happened in the next experiments. They were on the fly, very little preparation, just at the last second experiments. But I did capture something only after listening to enhancements of a segment of one of the experiments last night. This experiment I conducted easily 2 weeks ago. I held off on compiling it because I didn't think it was worthwhile. I thought I was going to reshoot it and just redo another experiment, but let you know that not all experiments are going to be successful. Some are going to be zero. For example, the next experiment, I went into, near my house, a nature area where wild animals are allowed to roam free, and I put the static electricity proximity detector in a tree to prove that it wasn't any device. And I got minimal beeps, very minimal. It's 1:42 p.m., Thursday, March 8th. This is my setup, limited time. If an entity could set that off, it would be interesting. So this will be the location of the device. It is turned on. The LEDs are very hard to see, so I'm going to focus this camera, number 2. I'm going to focus it as close as possible on the device. The ghost detecting device, which I've already tested and I know it works. I'm a fan of science. I'm a fan of observing invisible things with science. And science definitely has proven the existence of an array of things we cannot see with the human eye. There are so many different gamma rays, violet rays, you name it, that are invisible to the human eye. The human eye is very stunted, very limited in what it can see and observe. But when you see poltergeist activity, for example, an object moving on its own, and you share that story with someone, they're going to disbelieve you. They're going to mock you. They're going to question whether you're joking with them because it's such a rare phenomenon. It is that rare. I don't know if I'm out of focus, but it doesn't matter. The focus is this device right here. Now is the opportunity for that device to be activated by an invisible entity. There are positive forces in the universe, and there are negative forces in the universe. There are positive invisible forces, and there are negative invisible forces, and there are negative invisible forces. This experiment is a limited time, and it would be interesting if you could set it off. Perhaps it was set off prior. I tested the battery. It's a brand new battery I opened from plastic myself. Okay, that is the device working. It's interesting. So the device is detecting a spirit. It's authentic communication in the context of, can it set the device off, yes or no? And it appears to be yes, it can. Can it set the device off, yes or no? Can it set the device off, yes or no? Can it set the device off, yes or no? The next experiment after that involved me just sitting in the corner of the room, just like experiment number 1. And the entity clearly was in the room. I could sense it, I could hear it creaking in the other corner of the room. A corner where I have my turntable with vintage video games stacked on top of it. I'll show you right here. This is the corner where the entity creaked at least 2 times, very audibly, very loud. You will be able to hear this audio on both the Sony and the Panasonic camera microphones because my lapel mic didn't work during that recording. But it doesn't matter because this lapel mic is designed to pick up my voice and to cancel any background noise. The two cameras actually picked up this sound better than my lapel mic would have anyway, and this is the focal point of this entire episode. The other corner of my room creaks twice, which I know to be minimal poltergeist activity. I know it's an entity that has the ability to move objects if it has the ability to sit on my turntable, creak it twice, and I paused. I stopped what I was saying and I paused and I looked over, acknowledging the existence of the entity because it clearly wanted me to know that it's sitting over there, refusing to perhaps set off the devices. After the creak, I boosted the volume 1,000% and I hear a voice. You might say it's an EVP, and I could consider it my first EVP, but listening to it without any enhancements, it sounds like this very faintly. It sounds like two words. When I boosted it 1,000%, you will see later in this video what it says, but I want you to judge. I'll play it a good 4 times for you to judge what you think it's saying. But after I discovered what it said, after listening to it for 5 to 10 minutes, I figured out what it was saying. This voice is in a very low tone, and what it says is very frightening. Let me show you what time it is. It is 1:31 a.m. on March 10th, Saturday. 1:31 a.m. 1:31 a.m. March 10th, Saturday. I'm going to throw the phone. You will see I'm going to chuck it. Phones can theoretically set off a electromagnetic field. So I'm going to chuck it so it doesn't mess anything up. I'm going to keep this experiment as short as possible. It's actually going to be the limit and length that I can record with this microphone, lapel mic right here. This is a pretty short recording device. It records for about 1 hour and 15 minutes. The GoPro usually records around there as well. So when the GoPro dies and/or my lapel mic dies, that's when the experiment is over. You will see a different array from experiment number 1. Different. 45 minutes and 35 seconds go by. I'm speeding up so people can actually have the time to watch this episode, as episode 1 was 1.5 hours long. That was the special. Check it out. But this episode is going to be a little bit shorter. I didn't have the spotlight on my face because it was hot during episode 1. The GoPro footage I deleted because I thought I didn't capture anything. None of the devices went off. The lapel mic, I must have pushed a button and it didn't record anything. So I thought the footage was worthless, but I'm speeding up to the important part where I was talking about why I didn't film the poltergeist in the year 2011. People ask me, why didn't I take video? Maybe I didn't answer that question. I didn't take video. I didn't want to open up that contract. I'm hearing some noise coming from that corner right there. Not the favorite corner, but a different corner over there. Scary stuff I'm not supposed to really acknowledge and first-hand conversationalize, but maybe I'm using the word conversationalize because it's a little bit freaky. But if you want to activate one of these devices, now's your chance. These cameras are going to die eventually, and this Tascam recorder, which is just this lapel mic right here, is only going to last for approximately 18-20 minutes. I've heard many creaks in the corner of my room over many years, but I've never heard a voice, and I didn't hear it audibly until I played it back. I got used to it. I believe I became stronger. For example, if poltergeist activity happened right now, which I do believe it did in that corner of that room, that is my turntable, which has an old-fashioned plexiglass top with pretty lightweight boxes of vintage video games stacked. Pretty lightweight, with a very lightweight drone on top of that. When I hear a significant creak And these cameras might have picked up the creak. I will try to go back and see if I can amplify that. To give an example of what the creak sounds like, an authentic creak. Let's take a listen to this authentic creak replay, if I can do so. I didn't want to open up that contract. 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 The same day that I heard the creak in the corner of my room during what I thought was a failed experiment, because I didn't review and boost the volume until literally yesterday. And it is currently April 9th. So I literally didn't boost that footage, that audio, because I've heard thousands upon thousands of creaks in my life, and I've never had voices or attempted to even listen to a voice after a creak. I know the creaks are created by spirits. I can hear a faint voice, very faint, on the audio without any boosting. But while I was sitting there, I didn't hear anything. I heard zero. But I wasn't listening for it. Maybe if I really opened my ears and listened, I might have been able to faintly hear something, but I didn't hear it at the time. So I guess technically it's an EVP, as I didn't hear it until later on the two cameras, the Panasonic and the Sony. I'm going to do a reenactment of 11 p.m. that very same day on March 10th. The creak happened around 2 a.m. I'll get the exact time later. 2 a.m. March 10th. Fast forward to 11 p.m. March 10th. I'm on my bed with my laptop watching the X-Files, or watching Timeless. I'm definitely watching one of my favorite shows. I can't remember which one it was at the time. Timeless or X-Files, something like that. I have my headphones on, and I'm literally just watching it, just kicking back. I pause it, I go for a restroom break, I take off my headphones like this, and I hear very loud, I hear a person in my room. There's no one in my room. But let me show you. I'm keeping the lights dim because this is what it looked like. This is the scene of what I saw from my bed. Just peeking around my laptop, I saw this. I immediately ran over to it. As I have said on Twitter or wherever I mentioned this vaguely, maybe in 2011 I would have been scared by this, but not this time. I've gotten so used to this stuff, although this is the most extreme encounter I've witnessed. This happened on March 10th, 2018. The last time something this extreme happened was 2011 when I was in the poltergeist room. So I immediately ran over, and I could literally still see the wires going back and forth. The entity picked up my wires and banged them as hard as he could. And they were still going back and forth, kind of like that. But before I was able to walk over here, I heard the entity step on my wires. Not only did he bang those wires as hard as he could against metal, metal on metal for maximum effect. Definitely one of the hallmarks of this type of entity. They only have so much ability and power to move objects physically. So when they do, they try to make the most of what they're doing, but the thing didn't seem to notice. My headphones were on, so I feel like I missed half of the show. I feel like I missed half of the poltergeist activity because I was clueless until I took my headphones off. But before I ran over, I heard a sound which I guess I could resemble feet. Kind of sounded like that. I ran over immediately, and I stood right here. And I said, hey, this is my room. What I said was, get out of my room. These are my things. You see this? This is mine. You see these wires? These are mine. You see these? These are mine. You see this pile of wires? It may be messy, but it's mine. This room is mine. Everything in this room is mine. And I went on for about a minute straight saying that this is my room and these are my items. You have no claim to these items. It's all mine. Get out of here. I can't say it hasn't come back. I've definitely heard creaks here and there since. Similar creaks to the one I recorded on audio. But boosting that volume, it most definitely clearly says, you will. That's 100% authentic audio of an actual entity that actually creaked. I'm going to turn on the light. This is what it was like during the filming. I didn't have my spotlight, but I had this light on. And this is a vintage 1960s turntable. And this is basically the sound that it made. It's a very creaky turntable, trust me. I pushed here, and it made a similar noise. But as you can see, there's cracks. It's definitely an old, cracking, breaking turntable. And this entity, ever since I set up this setup right here, ever since I set this up, it does come to this corner because this used to be its favorite corner. Maybe it still is, but I can tell you this much. During that last corners of room experiment, and even before and since, this second favorite corner, or perhaps it's secretly this is its favorite corner, it's hard to say. But I'll tell you this much. My set, I'm tearing it down, okay? But the first thing I tore down was all the black paper. I had a bunch of black paper and some sound insulation foam pads, but a bunch of paper, black paper. We're talking many, many, many pieces of black construction paper that I painted a little bit, but mostly were pitch black. So this corner was pitch black for a couple years, and I think the entity really liked this black corner. And the second I pulled all this black paperboard off, I noticed the spirit acting up. Just more creaks, more frequent creaks, like this turntable being creaked. This turntable, I've heard it creak at least 1,000 times. So it didn't come to a surprise to me, but what was on the audio was clearly a spirit creak and not just a natural creak. So in addition to my instruments, I'm going to be listening for creaks, and I'm going to be recording EVPs. I have a few new EVP recorders, and I will be trying to record the voices in higher quality. Here's one recorder I got. It's not the best, but I got it to test out this pi diode. It works to record my voice. I don't know yet if it records a spirit's voice as good as a regular recorder. And I got this clock because it seems the entity is very focused on time and what time things happen, and it patiently waits for many hours. It definitely keeps track of time, and I wanted to keep track when exact instances take place. The official Room Corner experiment number 3 is going to take place in a live stream on Friday the 13th, 2018. These brief experiments during this episode are simply compiled and considered one experiment. These events actually happened a couple years ago. Would be the biggest poltergeist activity since the wires. And it involved this welcome gnome sign that was given to me as a gift. It's very heavy, and he was banging against a glass cabinet. Very loud, very obviously a spirit. I have some theories regarding that I will be sharing in the future. I can see already skeptics. I can already see the doubters and the haters. That voice is 100% authentic. I have the original file on my Panasonic camera. I have the original file on this Sony camera. Well, I took it off the camera and put it on my computer, but I have the original files. Anyone from Sony or Panasonic or any video experts could verify it's real. They would go to the extreme to say it was probably someone in my room. I assure you, I film alone at night. This is my room. There's nothing secret about it. There's no one in this room but me. I don't want to give a tour of my room right now, but I am eventually probably going to put a GoPro in the corner up here. And if and when I do have a GoPro in the corner up there, I'm going to sporadically turn it on, and when I leave, see if anything gets moved around. The entity thinks it has full reign and license because I'm conducting the experiments, and let's face it, I want the experiments to be successful to collect data to prove spirits exist. People have already shut me out and unfollowed me on Twitter, and a lot of different things are happening, you know. I'm not doing any of this for sensational reasons. This is 100% research. I love science. A huge fan of Stephen Hawking. I know science is going to reject this, but there has to be someone trying to approach it from a scientific angle. I know there are many paranormal researchers out there. A lot of them don't try to approach it from a scientific angle. I'm just trying to do what I know a few paranormal researchers out there are trying to do. Approach it from a scientific angle, get some data, show the world. The world's going to accept it or reject it, but this is important documentation. These experiments are actually pretty dangerous. Entities do follow you home. They are attracted to the setup. It's kind of like a seance. It's kind of like a Ouija board, a digital Ouija board, by having all these pieces of equipment. I'm going to stop the experiments at experiment number 10. The voice really is audible on the actual original file on both cameras, the Panasonic and the Sony. The voice is real. The voice is audible. It's a voice. It's not just some mechanical thing. It's clearly a tone of a voice of an entity. And it was clearly an intelligent entity because it directly replied to what I just said. I said what I've said 100 times. I hear people ask me over and over and over after watching my documentaries, why didn't you film it in 2011? Why didn't you film the poltergeist entity? I've been asked that question 100 times. I probably answered it 25 times, and then I got tired of answering it. But I wanted to bring it up because I know people continuously ask me. And the entity was interested in the story and probably heard me mention it many times. It cut me off. It knew where I was going, but I said I didn't want to enter a contract. In 2011, I didn't film the poltergeist because I didn't want to enter a contract. Creak, creak. I turn over, recognize the entity sitting there. You will. I didn't want to enter a contract. You will. This is freaking biblical. I mean, whether you take the Bible literally or not, this is actual data on the recording of 2 of my cameras of an actual entity intelligently cutting me off and responding to what I just said. As far as I know, this is the closest thing to an audible deal with an actual demon or a cliche mythological fairy tale deal with the devil recorded on camera. I'm going to be pointing a camera to that other corner, possibly from now on during every experiment. I have enough cameras where I could probably take one off. Maybe the GoPro will go over there instead. An entity actually thinks I'm going to enter a contract where it levitates objects or knocks over objects or sets off my ghost hunting equipment in exchange for my soul. No thanks. That's not going to happen. Not in a million years. I didn't think in a million years I would get such an audible, intelligent response to me even bringing up the subject of I didn't want to enter a contract. I was dead set on not entering a contract even before I ever had an entity jump out and appear to me in 2010. So this entity either doesn't know me very well or is simply lying. Demons, devils are known to lie. I'm not going to enter any contract. The fact that he was actually recorded on camera is kind of proof I'm not going to. If I become super rich and successful, it will be from hard work, but I guarantee you I'm never going to be entering any contract with any entities. This actually happened. It's actually real. I said I don't want to enter a contract. Speaking of the demon poltergeist from 2011 that haunted my room for 6 months, the demon said, you will. Now, I don't think it's the same demon from California from 2011. I'm in a different state now. I'm in Arizona. I don't think it's the same demon. I think it's a different demon. As far as the voice, they can change their voice. It's a very cliche Hollywood voice that it shows. You will. You will. Very cliche, very Hollywood. I assure you that voice was 100% an intelligent, invisible entity that was a spirit sitting right over there. This is the exact location the creak came from. And a few seconds later, as I paused, it said, "You will." It's very audible. It's the first EVP I've ever captured. I believe the second EVP I've captured was in an antique mall. I will be sharing that in a future episode. I just wanted to be clear of the implications, how heavy this is. I considered canceling all of the experiments after hearing it last night for the first time. I listened to it a good 10 times, 20 times, 100 times. I walked into the kitchen to take a break. I don't think many people know what it's like to be me right now. I got a direct response. Now, I'd say perhaps the Ghost Adventures guys have heard similar things. I guess I will try to send this clip to them, but they probably get stuff like this all the time. People probably fake stuff like this all the time for attention. I would never fake anything like this for attention. I'm still the hoax hunter. I still bust hoaxes occasionally in my spare time for fun. On Twitter, I'll say, you know what, that's fake. But what happened was when I busted hoaxes all day long is people called me a shill and an agent. And just a shill and an agent and a shill. That's what happens when you bust hoaxes all the time. You're automatically an informant from the government and a shill and an agent. But I wanted to branch out into the paranormal, which I'm also a huge fan of the subject, but I'm not a huge fan of the subject of the devil and demons. Trust me. If I could pick any subject, it would not be this one. I would pick something light and fluffy, and everyone could enjoy it. So these videos are pretty much only for people that understand. This isn't entertainment, but it's educational. Hopefully when I die, some of this will help someone in the future. Don't make any deals. Don't even attempt to even think about making any deals. Some people are over the top ready to make a deal with the Illuminati right now. Not me. I'd rather be dead broke and die broke than ever be any great elite Illuminati person. I'm probably never going to be huge on YouTube. If you don't have 100,000 subscribers on YouTube and 1 billion views, you're pretty much non-existent. You're pretty much invisible. Understanding this channel's virtually invisible, I still want to conduct my experiments, give everything to them. When they're over, I can finally relax and focus on other subjects. I do want to cover other paranormal subjects in the future. I thank you for watching. This has been John Razimus. It's in the realm of possibly stopping me from finishing these experiments, but I've already invested so much money in new equipment you haven't seen yet. So I have to steamroll ahead, just finish the 10 experiments, put it in my book, Corners of Rooms, that I'm writing. I wanted there to be an experimentation chapter. I planned this a long time ago. I just didn't have the equipment and the means and the really desire to do it without a huge amount of equipment. And my setup is most definitely amateur during experiment number 1. These later experiments, which I'm combining and calling experiment number 2, the equipment quality did go up a little bit. But as far as this experiment, where I heard a creak 2 times and then enhanced it and heard a voice, I didn't hear this voice at the time. But you can clearly hear a voice. As far as the last experiment I conducted, I was going in the middle of the night to get some Jack in the Box, because it's the only fast food restaurant that's still open at 12 a.m. And I decided to set up the ghost hunting equipment and set up the cameras to have a little experiment, to see if this entity follows me to the fast food restaurant or if it stays in my room. Or perhaps there are two communicating amongst each other. I don't know. these entities are invisible? I have no idea. At the last second, I just set up a couple cameras. I record the corner of the room with the GoPro, with the other camera, and I get in my car, and it's about a 20-minute drive to and 20-minute back. So it's about a 40-minute drive. And this is what I captured in my room while I was gone. Spirits exist. I already know that for a fact, but other people don't know that. So I'm trying to collect data to show other people. And thank you for watching. This is John Razimus. I'm going to take off now. Okay. Whoa. Whoa. Okay. Well, we have something so far. We have, okay, for those that don't know, I went to, man, this is crazy. Okay. I'm walking, and I sit down. I'm going to zoom it out. See this device? This device is on max. It's on maximum. We have to check the footage to see if it was altered by that coin in any way. None of the coins are knocked over, unfortunately. But we will see if anything happened. I'll check the footage. This is a totally unaltered. Here I am. Okay, so for the GoPro, I was at Jack in the Box. I was at Circle K. For this camera, I was at Jack in the Box and Circle K. If anything happened, I'll check the footage. Jack in the Box receipt I left in the car, unfortunately. But the Circle K receipt, you can see 9:27 p.m. March 14th. The static detector needle did go up significantly over that 40-minute period of time. But it did go up enough to show there was an increase of static electricity where there shouldn't be any. But the most key significant piece of data during this experiment involved my GoPro. My GoPro, I believe, was touched. I believe the lamp that the GoPro is standing on top of was touched as well. These sounds, recorded with my GoPro, are in a room that's closed and no one is even near it. I'm driving to Jack in the Box and back. So I believe this is proof that at least one entity did stay behind in my room and briefly examined my GoPro, the lamp behind my GoPro or underneath my GoPro, and maybe some minimal stuff with the instruments, but nothing too major. I'm going to do my best to bring as much data to the table as possible. I thank you for watching. This has been John Razimus with Mysterialis. Be seeing you.